welcome to another episode of Rad Accounting Tutorials. So today we're going to discuss activity-based costing, and we have one question, and we'll go through the question together. So the whole concept of activity-based costing is just a way a business wants to find how much it costs to make a product or service by looking at the activities involved. That is the activity-based costing. It wants to find how much it costs a product or service. Looking at the activities involved, rather than just dividing the cost evenly by maybe the number of items or something. But then rather they want to look at the activities that is involved in producing a product or rendering a service. That is the activity-based costing. So just imagine you run a bakery that makes cakes and cookies. We are going to have costs like buying ingredients, using the oven, and let's say packing the products. These are some of the activities that will be involved in this production of the cakes and cookies. So with the traditional costing or with the traditional approach, you might just divide the cost based on the items you make, the number of items you make. That's the traditional approach. But then it is not always accurate. It is not always accurate when we want to uh, share the wires for the cakes and the cookies. It is not always accurate when you divide the number of, let's say, items or the number of labor hours by the cost. It is not always accurate. That's why there was introduction of the activity-based costing. So the activity-based costing will track how much each activity is used for cakes and cookies. So for example, if cakes takes more time in the oven than cookies, then it means the cake should be charged the cost of the oven. The cost of the oven should it means the cost of the oven. Cake should take more of the cost than what cookies. Since cakes use more of the oven than cookies, then it means the cost of the ovens, cake should take more of it. That's what activity-based costing is saying. So activity-based costing says that this way of assigning cost or overheads is accurate, that they are looking at the activities involved. Let's also say if cookies need more packaging than cakes, then it means for the packaging cost, cookies should take more of the packaging cost than the cakes. So that is all about the activity-based costing. So the activity-based costing helps business see the true cost of making each product, so they can set a better prices and cut unnecessary expenses. They want to see the true cost of a product or service, then they activity-based costing. Use activity-based costing. So we have a question here. We're going to solve it together. Let's go through. I read the question.
Ebenezer Limited produces two types of household tissue in the same plant. The budget committee has identified the following overhead activities, costs, and activity drivers for the coming year. We have the activity and expected costs. Setting up machines 240,000, ordering cost 180,000, machine cost 420,000, receiving an inspection 200,000. Ebenezer produces two main products in the same factory with the following expected prime costs and activity demands. We have the model A and model B. Direct materials 300,000 for model A, 400,000 for model B. Direct wages 240 for model A, 240,000 for model B. Output units 80,000 and 40,000 for model A and model B respectively. Number of setup 200 and 100 respectively. Number of orders 3,000 and 6,000 respectively. Machine hours 12,000 and 9,000 respectively. Receiving and inspection hours 1,500 and 3,500. The company normal capacity is 40,000 direct labor hours. We are required to determine the number. We are required to determine the unit cost of each model using I, the direct labor hours to apply overhead, and II, the activity-based costing approach to apply overhead.
So when you have this question here, it said activity and expected cost. And the requirement is saying that we should determine the unit cost of each product using the direct labor hours to apply the overhead. So this one, using the direct labor hours to apply the overhead, it's just like using the tradition, it's just like the traditional approach. That's use the direct labor hours. I hope you are following. So if you want to, you have to always know that if you want to find the cost of a product, it is always the summation of your prime cost and your overheads. Prime cost is all your direct costs, and your overheads are all your indirect costs. So when you add these two, then you get your overheads. You get your cost of the product. So in this question, we have the expected cost, which can also be the budgeted cost. So first of all, since the question did not give us the total budgeted cost or the total expected cost, we have to find it ourselves. We have to find it ourselves. So we have a total expected cost. We have a total expected cost. We have our series sign here. So we have this setting up, which is 240,000. And we have the ordering costs, which is 180,000. Then we have the cost, which is 420,000. We have the receiving inspection, 200,000. When we add all these costs, we have 1,040,000. So that is the total expected cost, which can also be our budgeted cost. So when you have this, now the I is saying that we should use the direct labor hours to apply for the overheads. That is also the traditional approach. So when it comes to the traditional approach, you have to find the overhead absorption rate. And the formula for the overhead absorption rate is the total overheads divided by the absorption base or the recommended base that will be given to you in the question. So here, the recommended base that was given to us in the question was the direct labor hours. So we have our total overheads to be 4,000. And the direct labor hours, we are going to add both the labor hours for module A and module B because the total overheads that we are seeing here is for both module A and module B. So we need to add these total overheads and we need to add these labor hours for both module A and module B and divide by the total overhead to get the overhead absorption rate, the rate that we are going to use to absorb the overheads into these modules. So we add the labor hours for both module A and module B and we divide. So the overheads, total overheads we have by 477. And the labor hours for module A is 30,000. And the labor hours for module B is 10,000. When you add these two, we get 40,000. So we divide 40,000. We are doing this because the total overheads that is 140,000. Sorry, 1,040,000 is for all module A and module B. So if you want to find the absorption rate, then we need to add, since the total overhead is for both of them, we need to add both the labor hours for uh, module A and module B. That is 40,000. So when we divide this, we have 26. So that is 26 cedis per direct labor hours. So that is the overhead absorption rate. That is when you want to do the traditional approach. What you have to find is the overhead absorption rate. So now let's find the unit costs using the direct labor hours for applying the direct labor hours for the overheads. So always remember that if you want to find the cost of a product, it is the the summation of the prime cost and the overhead. The summation of the prime cost and the overhead. So the prime cost is all direct cost of the product. It's the direct cost of all the products. So that is the prime cost, and the overheads are all the indirect costs. So we have model A, we have model B. You bring your CD sign, you bring your CD sign. So we have direct materials, we have direct materials, which is 300 for module A, 300,000. And we have module B to be 400,000. And we have our direct wages. Direct wages, we have 240,000. So we have 240,000. We also have 240,000 for module B. So when we add this, we have 540,000. We have 640,000. That is all our prime costs. That is what we call our prime costs. Our direct cost is called our prime cost. Then we come to the overheads. So when we come to the overheads for the traditional approach for applying the direct labor hours, since the recommended absorption base is the direct labor hours, we are going to multiply the number of direct labor hours used by module A by the rate, which is 26 cities per direct labor hours. You get it. So if the question says that use machine hours base as the absorption base, then when you get your rate, you multiply by the number of hours, sorry, the number of our machine hours used by the product or model. So here we are going to multiply the rate by the number of direct labor hours by each model. So direct labor hours for module A is 3,000. So 3,000 by 3,000 by 26 is what will give us 780 780,000. And the direct labor hours for model B is 10,000. So 10,000 by 26 give us 260,000. So when we add our overheads to our prime costs, then we can get our production. So that is 132 for the model A. And for model B, you have 900,000. So that is the production cost, total production. But the question is saying we should find the unit cost. That is the cost per unit. So cost per unit. Then we have to divide by the units produced. So we are going to divide by the units produced. So model A, the units produced is 80,000. The units produced is 80,000. So when we divide 1,320,000 by 80,000, you have 16 cities, 50 pesos. That is for model A. Then when you move to model B, the units produced was 40,000. So when you divide 900,000 by 40,000, you have 22 cities, 50 pesos. So that is the cost unit for each model using the direct labor hours or the overheads. That is it. Very, very simple. Now let's move to the activity-based costing. Let's move to the activity-based costing. So when it comes to the activity-based costing, that is where the overheads has been what activity or cost groups. So when it comes to the activity base, we need to find the cost driver rate. You need to find the cost driver rate. The cost driver rate that they are going to use for, and is the cost driver rate that they are going to use for the overhead. So you need to find the cost driver rate. That is the cost driver rate for each activity. So let's find the cost driver rate for each activity. So you have activity here, then you have cost here, then you have our total cost driver. Then we have our cost driver rates. So this is how we go by cost driver rates. You are very interested in finding the cost driver rates because that's what we are going to need for our overheads. When it comes to this, the prime cost for the prime cost, both the traditional method and the activity-based method, they are the same. The only difference is the activity and the overheads. So we have the setting up, we have the ordering, we have the machine, we have receiving, and inspection. So the cost for the setting up is 240,000 and the ordering is 180,000. The machinery is 420,000. Then this is 200,000. So the total cost driver, that is, you be given the cost drivers in the question. What you need to do is to add each cost driver. So if you have three products and the number of setup for product A, B, and C, we add all the number of setup for all the products. And that will be your total cost driver. And that will be your total cost driver. So here we have model A and model B. We are going to add the number of setup for both model A and model B, which add both the number of orders for model A and B. Do same for machine hours for model A and B. That will be our total cost driver. So for setting up, the total cost driver will be 300 plus, sorry, 200 plus what? 100, which will give us what? 300. 200 for module A, 100 for module B, add it, then we get 300. So that will give us 300. And the number for this 6,000 and what? 300. So that will give us 9,000. Then machine hours, we have 12,000 and 9,000, which will give us 21,000. Then the inspection, we have 1,500 and 3,500, which will give us 5,000. So how do we get our cost driver rates? We get our cost driver rates by dividing the costs by what? The total cost driver. So 240,000 by 300, and we get our rate. So when we do that, we are going to have 800 cedis per setup. So for one setup, the cost is 800 cedis. Then the ordering cost, we divide the 180,000 by what? 9,000, and we get 20 cedis. So it means the cost of one order is 20 cedis per order, 20 cedis per order. And we do same for the machine hours. The machine cost 120,000 by 21,000 will give us 420,000 by 21,000 will give us 20 cedis per machine hours. Then we come to the receiving and inspection. We divide the 200,000 by 5,000. We get 40 cedis per receiving and inspection. So now we have our cost driver rate. Now we have our cost driver. When you have your cost driver rate, then you can go ahead to determine your uh, cost unit. You can go ahead to determine your cost unit. So determination of cost units using the ABC approach. So again, for the prime cost for each approach, they are the same. Nothing changes. Nothing changes. So you just repeat what you've done for the traditional approach. So you have the direct materials. You have the direct wages. This is 300. Then this is 400,000. Direct wages is 240,000. So when we add this, we get 540,000. And this we get 640,000. So that is our prime costs. It is the same, nothing changes for the prime cost. Now let's come to our overheads. So when we come to our overheads, we are going to multiply the rate by the number of each activity of the product. So when we come to setup, the number of setup for model A is what 200. We are going to multiply the 200 by this 800. That is the cost per setup. So every setup, you have to pay 800 cedis. And for model A, we had 200 setup. So if you want to know the cost of setup that we have to assign to model A, then we multiply the 800 by 200. So setting up, we have 200 by 800, which will give us 160,000. Then we come to model B. Model B, the number of setup for model B is 100. It's 100. So you multiply 100 by what? 800, which will give us 80,000. So 100 by 800 to give us 80,000. That is all for the activity-based costing. There is nothing difficult here. Very, very simple. Then we move to the ordering costs. So ordering costs, the number of orders for module A is 3,000, and the cost per order is 20 cedis. So you multiply, if we order one, is 20 cedis, and for module A, there was ordering cost on the number of orders for module A was 3,000. Then we multiply the 3,000 by 20, then we get 60,000. Then we come to module B, the number of orders for module B is 6,000. So we multiply the 6,000 by the rate that we have here. So the rate for the ordering cost is what? 20. So 6,000 by 20. Then we get 120,000. Then we come to the machine. So machine we multiply by the number of machine hours. So the number of machine hours for module A is what? 12,000. And the cost for the machine, the rate for the machine cost is what? 20 cedis. So every 1 hour we charge for every one machine, for every 1 hour machine, one machine hour, we charge 20 cedis. So if there is 12,000, we multiply by this, then we get 240,000. 240. Then we move to model B. Model B also used 9,000 machine hours. So if you use 9,000 machine hours and the cost of 1 hour is 20 cedis, then you are going to pay 180,000. Then we come to the receiving and inspection. Receiving and inspection. So receiving and inspection, the number of inspections for module A is 1,500. Hope you are getting it. 1,500 baht, the rate, which is 40. Then we have 60,000. We have 60,000. Then the number of inspection for module B is 10,500. So 10,500 by 40. And we have 140,000. So we add all these to get our total overheads. We add all these to get our total overheads. So when we add all the overheads on the A, we are going to get 520,000. And we will get 520,000 for the B also. So now let's add our prime cost to this to get our production cost. So 540,000, then 640. So when we add these two, we get our total production cost. And please, you should note this. We are adding the total overheads to the prime cost straight away because the prime cost is also in total. It's because the prime cost is also in total. If the prime cost is in per unit, that is prime cost per unit, that's 1 unit. After doing all these overheads, you have to divide the total overheads by the unit produced to get overheads per unit before you add. Yes, before you add. So per unit should go with per unit. Prime cost per unit should go to prime cost per unit. Don't, when it's prime cost per unit, don't go and add the total overheads to prime cost per unit. You first need to divide by the units produced to get the overheads per unit before you add. But then here we are adding straightforward because the prime cost is also in total. So if the prime cost is in total and the total overhead is also in total, then I can add and get my total production overhead, total production cost, sorry. Then I can then divide by the units to get my cost per unit. So the total production is for this is 10600. Then model B is 116000. So that is the total production cost. But then they are saying we should find the cost unit, that's the cost per unit. So we need to divide by the units produced. So the units produced for model A is 80,000. It's 80,000. And model B is 40,000. So when we divide, we are going to have 13 cities for model A, 13 cities, 25 pesos, and we have 29 cities for model B. So that is all about the activity-based costing. Very, very simple. Very, very simple. So here we could see that the price for each when using different approach is different. So when you look at when we are applying the direct labor hours or we are using the traditional approach, you could see that the model A cost was 16 cities, 50 pesos. But then when we use the activity-based costing, it is 13 cities, 25%. So we believe this is the true cost of the product. So when we use the traditional approach, like we are not being fair to model A. And when you look at model B, the cost has increased from 22 cities to 29 cities. It means more activities goes to model B. So if more activities goes to you, then it means you have to pay more. So that is the whole concept of the activity-based costing. I think we will end here and kindly subscribe to my channel, like, share, and put a comment there. If you don't understand it, just put thank you. You understand it very well to put a comment, subscribe, share for your friends to also have a benefit of the channel. Bye bye. See you in my next video.